Hi, this is Deacon Larry, and this is Renewed. Holy Week is just around the corner, and we'll move from Palm Sunday, Passion Sunday, into the three-day celebration that we call the Triduum. That one single liturgy that lasts 3 days, from Holy Thursday evening to Good Friday to the Easter Vigil itself, the great celebration of Christ's resurrection. So as we enter into that paschal mystery of Jesus' suffering, death, and the joyful resurrection, one of the ways for us to prepare for Holy Week certainly is to read the gospel accounts of Jesus' passion. Pick Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John, read one of those. But another thing that I might encourage is a chance to go back and look at the book of Exodus, to look at the story of what the Exodus account is about. Now, the Exodus account is Moses, right? The Hebrew people are enslaved. God calls Moses. Moses calls for the people to be freed. Pharaoh says no. It sounds a lot like our life, right? We get enslaved by sin. The Lord wants us to be free and live in His glory and friendship, but we're bound by sin, bound by Satan. We need a liberator. Well, Moses then calls the Pharaoh and says, "Let my people go." No, 10 times he does this, and there is that terrible set of plagues. But eventually Pharaoh says, "I'll let you go." And so the people go with Moses, but they have to leave quickly. So they eat a meal, the Passover meal, with blood smeared on their doorstep to protect them from the angel of death. Then fleeing out through the Dead Sea into the desert, following the pillar of light onto the promised land. Sisters and brothers, if we gather on Holy Thursday evening, we celebrate the feast of the Lord's Supper, in which we witness Jesus taking unleavened bread. Where might we find unleavened bread? We find it at the Passover, when the Jewish people were in such a hurry to leave that they didn't have time to use the yeast to allow their bread to rise, so they used unleavened bread, and off they went. They ate bitter herbs because they had to gather what they could quickly to eat, so you eat what's nearest by. Here, we're not given bitter herbs, but the food of new life, the body and blood of Christ. But the symbol of that hurried meal that's going to lead us into paradise is imaged for us in the Passover meal. A Passover in which today, when Jewish families celebrate the Passover, they recall the great events that led them to this day, free from Egypt. When we celebrate the Feast of the Lord's Supper, not only on Holy Thursday, but every Sunday, every daily Mass, we recall the story of how we were brought out of slavery to freedom. Good Friday, we celebrate, and there's the image of the death of Christ, the reality of the death of Christ. We also see in the journey of the Hebrew people, having to go through the experience of death in order to be freed. Those slaves who lost their lives working for the Hebrews, those who were struck down on the way, those who then were able to pass through to the promised land, as we are called to pass through into the promised land of eternal life. The Holy Saturday and the Easter Vigil being that great celebration. Imagine what it was to be on the other side of freedom, no longer worried about your past, but going into the land that is the proverbial land of milk and honey. Sisters and brothers, the privilege for us every week as we gather as churches, we are indeed already tasting of the land of flowing of milk and honey. We have the joy of the resurrection to sustain us, even though we continue to deal in a world that has sin and death. So there's tons and tons of images that come to us from the Exodus account that inform and shape what we're doing as we celebrate the Easter Vigil. So if you want to prepare for Holy Week, one way to do it is spend some time with the book of Exodus. If you do, you'll be renewed.
Please like, subscribe, or comment below.